this rap-ish. I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list. Hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues. Guess if you ain't at the table, you on the menu. And I'm that spitter, baby. They don't want you to see, but everybody's south of Capitol Hill's rocking with me. Boys smoke the trays and ponder getting their life together. I'm comfortable with my role, so I'm like, whatever. Me? I ain't got a job, but I work hard. And you don't work hard, but you got a job. The irony is I'm judged while you feel the applause. I'm slept on, that's why I had to set this alarm. My dudes is armed, I'm armed with this arm charm. Body banging like she got that cream from Barry Bonds. Yeah.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
That Dre season is here, a real hitter with a mic, I'm everything that they fear. With that hood ain't the same, I was all on their ass, I'm level-headed. So yo, my dudes love when I spaz, and I'm so over Seattle's passive-aggressive attitude. They don't call you back, what they really saying is F you. While I'm from the same place, I move at a different pace. I prefer if you just said it to my face, damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it
I hate
for
these
us.
average dudes with they average spit, writing average rhymes, knocking average chicks. The closer I get, I can feel the people starting to shift. I'm loyal to a fault, and everybody can't come with. Rap's a rich man's game, I'm only playing with change. They bang models and singers, I'm knocking my own flame, I'm different. The crowd, I move with the chosen few. Black thoughts, I could be the front man for the roots. No diamonds and gold, I'm on my sticks and stones. If we can see your panty line, you should have on a thong. My team is strong, through this fire we forged a bond. And they already know what it is when I get on. To the hearse, party like it's December 31st. When I'm on my deathbed, I probably cracking my nurse. You ain't got the bars to compete. I'm a verbal athlete, deflating these boys so they say that I cheat. Damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Yeah. I should probably start by apologizing for the long wait, man. You know, I know I be tripping. But I'm not just a rapper, I'm an artist. And, you know, my creative process is a little bit different than most. Nonetheless, I want to welcome everybody out to the Dre's Experience. I got TCF in the building. My whole camp's here with me. I got the band in here laying this cool-ass vibe. And I'm Seattle's own. Let's get into it.
Well, happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday, and we got a nice lineup for y'all today. As always, got to start the week off right. And you guys know I got to bring in my guy, Big O. What up, Big O?
Trey Holiday, what's
Hey.
happening, man? Happy Monday. It's good to see you.
Yes, great to be with you always. Oh,
Yeah.
got some stuff to get into today, man. You know?
Man, you know, it's city of Seattle. It's always some stuff to get into, but we got our stuff here first.
Absolutely.
First of all, want to welcome you to the Morning Update Show and tell you, especially today, it's a good time right now to tag and share the stream. Go ahead and tag and share the stream with people who you know benefit from culturally relevant news and information emanating from right here in the Emerald City. Secondly, want to give a big shout out to our partners at the South Seattle Emerald and KBCS 91.3 out there at Bellevue College. They got a strong transmitter. You can hear KBCS like all over Puget Sound. Another thing here, want to remind everybody, vaccinations, there's no appointment necessary, a vaccination, city-run vaccination site. So if you need a vaccination, it's out there, you know, check the hours and everything. And again, if someone's asking you to cash app them for a vaccination, like, yeah, that's not the route. Or if it's going to be delivery by mail, stay away from that. One other thing here too, constant reminder is the Morning Update Show is now available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. So SoundCloud, Apple, Google. Well, there we go. See, our director has put it up here on the screen. That's SoundCloud right there. But Spotify, anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you can hear the Morning Update Show.
Absolutely. Always there to, do some innovative measures for our growing audience. So glad that that's the case.
Yeah. So, I want to talk about a few things here today. And actually, it was some breaking news in the city that we'll get into here in a minute. I was on KUOW early this morning, and you can go to KUOW's website. We'll pull it up here in a minute. They had an interview with Chief Best. And Chief Best, for people who have been watching Converge Media, and I don't know if this is the case or not with this East Precinct, but for sure, this command staff that's there, Converge Media has been saying for months that it seemed like there was a mutiny underway inside the Seattle Police Department against Chief Best.
Yeah.
We've been saying that for at least 6, 7, 8 months. We've been saying that it seemed, I was like, there's no way, going back to always say, May 29th, there's no way that what we witnessed on May 29th would go down and the chief of police know about it. So all the way back from May 29th, I'm like, yo, man, there's a mutiny underfoot. It's microaggressions. There's something going on in the Seattle Police Department at the command level between the command staff and the chief. Been saying that for months. So it's real interesting that Chief Best came out today and she was like, yo, the command staff did X, Y, and Z. I don't know as far as East Precinct, whether I believe all that or not, but I do know that we witnessed, you know what I'm saying? If you pay attention here, you can see like, yo, okay, Seattle Police Department elements within the police department were actively working against the chief, 100%. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
here it is. Again, honestly, being able to follow these things closely is super important. It's key because when you see something like that and you see actions take place, lots of people in the community were saying, would this happen if that chief was a white man? Would this happen if that chief was a white person or a man in general? So honestly, I'm glad that, former Chief Carmen Best was able to come out and speak her truth. You know what I'm saying? I think there's a lot for us to be able to decipher, but ultimately, a lot of folks have been saying it, and a lot of folks knew there was something fishy going on.
We've been saying this from jump.
Yeah.
We've been saying like, yo, come on, you know what I'm saying? There's all the signs of it. You know what I'm saying? The union, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how CBS this morning gaslighted Seattle with the turn and burn with this officer Clayton Powell. And last week, we were sitting there looking at it like, man, this just don't look right.
Yeah.
This don't look right. So we're going to play this video here, Clayton Powell. We're going to talk about this here with Chief Best. Like I said, I'm still up in the air on the East Precinct, but for sure, you know what I'm saying? There was an internal struggle going on at the Seattle Police Department between the command staff and Chief Best. They ain't want this black woman sitting up there telling them what to do. I promise you,
Yeah, there it is.
Anyways, before we go there, let me keep it on a positive note before we go or whatever. Found a throwback yesterday. Let's put this up right now. This story. I won't read the whole thing, but imagine this was 5 years ago yesterday. Today, I fly to Beijing, China, and then to Dubai to finalize the technical aspects of our new Converge TV network that will be launching in Seattle. Converge will be on broadcast cable TV, working on it, across the Northwest, IPTV, Roku, Apple, Amazon Fire, and Smart TV and connected devices. It'll also have a very heavy web and blog element as well. I'm developing Converge as a home for Northwest content creators to distribute and monetize their creations. You can pull this up. That was 5 years ago yesterday, Trey. Some people out there think Converge popped up during the protests or something, but that was five years yesterday. I went to Beijing to talk about some kind of back-end technology deal and everything else for Converge.
Wow. You know what? People do need to see that history because so many of our viewers, have been following Converge, growing with Converge. Many came from the protest, but others were there because they saw us launching something that was community driven. So I love being able to tie it back to its roots. You know what I mean? Really showcase to the audience where we started from right here at Converge. It's beautiful.
Right. And one other quick thing here as well. Want to put up this other overlay, man. We want to congratulate our big guy, Jake Gravbrot, GTFO. Jake Gravbrot presents GTFO. It premiered last night at 7 p.m. Got lots of great reviews. Them comments were amazing. We're going to go ahead and share that link to GTFO in the comments so you can go ahead and check out Jake Gravbrot.
Yeah, amazing production. And honestly, I just love being able to see Jake's creativity flourish in that way. So shout out to you, Jake. Great job.
Man, and you know it's crazy, right? Because KUOW, they interviewed me this morning because tomorrow, 1 year anniversary, of course, of this crime against humanity, the slow motion murder of George Floyd. And, you know, it's crazy because it's like, you know, they're talking about George Floyd, and it just never stops for us. Right here, this is CBS this morning. This is down there in Louisiana. More footage came out with Ronald Green.
Newly released video of a deadly arrest of a black man in Louisiana 2 years ago is drawing more outrage. Today, the family of Ronald Green told CBS News it wants the officers held accountable. We get more now from CBS's Michael George, and a warning, the video is disturbing.
I'm scared. I'm your brother. I'm scared.
Ronald Green is pleading with Louisiana State Police officers who wrestle him to the ground following a pursuit in May 2019.
Taser.
After excerpts were published by the Associated Press, state police released 40 minutes of body camera videos, which show Green being tased and punched from several angles. Officers say he continued to resist. Green can be heard repeatedly saying, "I'm sorry."
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
The FBI is investigating Green's death and what led up to it. But on the tape, Trooper Chris Hollingsworth is heard explaining what happened.
I beat the ever living out of him, choked him and everything else trying to get him under control. And the was still fighting, and we were still wrestling with him, trying to hold him down because he was spitting blood everywhere. And then all of a sudden, he just went limp.
Green's family is suing the Louisiana State Police for wrongful death. They say the agency initially claimed Green died after crashing into a tree during the chase. CBS News has confirmed an autopsy report showed head injuries, a broken breastbone, and a torn aorta were factors in his death. Colonel Lamar Davis.
Having, contacted and spoken with the Green family, I can feel their pain.
The Louisiana State Police fired 2 of the troopers and suspended another. Last fall, just hours after learning he would be fired, Trooper Hollingsworth died in a single-car crash. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Yep. So, like I said, I mean, where will we be without these tapes? You know what I'm saying? For one, but this is a continuing development down there in Louisiana. 2 years they were sitting on these tapes, Trey Holiday, and the AP leaked them, and now all the tapes. 2 years.
This right here is why so many people do not trust the way the system is set up, because ultimately they had body cams on, but it did not stop them from this brutal attack. At the end of the day, they weren't concerned with these tapes coming out. They knew that there was a system that was going to protect them. And ultimately, this is exactly why so many people attack it from a systemic level. When we see something like this, it's not just those police officers in Louisiana. We see this time and time again now as this body cam footage comes out. And to be honest, it is despicable that people actually that are trained to protect and serve actually showcase it in this way. It's a total abuse of power. It is really a lack of lives. And we talk about it being Black lives because too many times it's Black men and women that are the ones right there on the ground, still getting tased, still getting punched, getting kicked. At the end of the day, this is it's unfortunate, and for the family, we're just I'm going to send some love to that family, because when you see this come out and everybody in the public is sitting here reacting to it, you guys are the ones that lost the loved one. You know what I mean? You guys are the ones that really have to bear the brunt end of him not being there at your family reunions and your holiday dinners. You guys are the ones. And to be honest, for me, this is just another example. I don't know how many more we need to see before people understand this is a systemic issue, period.
Yeah. I mean, agree with you. It's systemic. This is historically systemic. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's the boldness of the action. Like you said, man, you're right. They had no intention of being caught. My dad is nearing 80 years old, and we'll have lots of conversations when I'm down there in North Carolina, and we'll sit out on the deck and everything else. And all my years of going down there, when I hear him use the word fear, the only time, and he said it twice, he talked about the fear driving through the South. You know what I'm saying? When he was a young man, he was like driving through the South at night. That was one of the scariest things that he ever done. And all these years later, it could still be a scary, you still die. You know what I'm saying? I mean, imagine no tapes. You got to remember the original police report, George Floyd, was nothing like what actually happened. And that's what I'm saying is it's like,
they've gotten away with it for so long. They can lie in the reports. They can lie. Somebody's going to have their back. Some, captain is going to vouch for them. It's not just about those officers on the street. It is a whole system that supports all of that. It's true.
We got a lot of people in the comments talking about Chief Best, and we ain't even got to brother Officer Clayton Powell representing the blacks, dancing on CBS this morning. So we got a lot to get to here. Don't worry, we coming back to Chief Best for all you guys that are there in the comments. Want to bring this up tomorrow, 1 year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. A lot of people thought that this legislation in Washington, D.C. would become law, but not quite.
Tomorrow marks 1 year since George Floyd died at the hands of fired Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. Hundreds of people gathered in Minneapolis yesterday calling for justice for victims of police brutality. In his speech to Congress last month, President Biden challenged lawmakers to strike an agreement on police reform by tomorrow, May 25th. But Congress is nowhere close to meeting that deadline. Nancy Cordes is at the White House. Nancy, good morning.
Good morning, Enrique. Well, the president is going to be hosting the Floyd family here at the White House on the anniversary of George Floyd's death tomorrow. And he had been hoping to deliver the good news to them that Congress had reached a compromise on police reform legislation. Instead, he will have to tell them that the two sides are still talking. Over the weekend, one of the key negotiators, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, said that they are making what he called meaningful progress on a bill that would, among other things, ban police chokeholds, provide more funding for police body cameras, and create a national database for police use of force. And at this point, police reform advocates don't appear to be too alarmed by the fact that this is dragging on. The Reverend Al Sharpton said that he'd rather have a bill with teeth that's late than a toothless bill that is done on time. Now, the biggest sticking point continues to be what's known as qualified immunity, which often protects officers from being sued in civil court for wrongdoing. Many Democrats want to roll back those protections. Many Republicans do not. And the White House at this point is really playing a supporting role in these talks. It is not nearly as involved in the negotiations as it is in, say, infrastructure talks. And right now, Gail, that appears to be an arrangement that Democrats and Republicans are most comfortable with.
All right. So, Congress is doing what Congress does. But I will say this, is that the majority of things that are in that national bill, the people in the state of Washington should take some pride, because a lot of that stuff was signed into law here by Governor Inslee not too long ago. And even some of these things have been banned in Seattle for a long time. A chokehold or a carotid hold has been, it's been out of policy here with the Seattle Police Department, but our whole state. So that's why I say when Washington State's literally ahead of the rest of the country, we literally are.
No, we really are. And this is why so much of my language around this is how folks can actually take from Washington State as an example. When we talk about being a leader, what does that really mean? Well, it means that there has to be those who follow. And the nation has an opportunity right now to follow this progressive legislation that has been passed. When we talk about being able to talk to folks across the aisle, Washington State did that. And ultimately, it's because they understand the cry out from so many people in community that are like, I'm done with this. We need some more reforms. People understand, even those who talk about defunding the police or abolition, they understand that it has to be met with some systems that are going to be in place to take those 911 calls, to take certain things off of police backs so that community solutions can be elevated and be at the top and really be spread wide. died. But ultimately, you know, this is where I say people have an opportunity right now to look at what has happened right here in our state. And you're right. Oh, we have a lot to be proud of for that because the legislators and the people's voices got it done.
Right. Woo. It's a lot of people want to talk about Chief Best. I can tell you there's quite a few things that are going to get dropped from today's show so we can have this discussion. But I'm going to play, we got one more clip here. We'll play the NAACP gathered over there at the Martin Luther King Civil Rights Memorial Park on MLK Way. And they gathered to say their names of people who died at the hands of police violence.
Shay Taylor.
It was a time for remembrance and reflection.
Manuel Ellis.
To talk about the legacy they're trying to carve from loss.
Today we come to spread this weight that is too great a weight to be borne on the shoulders of one family.
Isaiah Obet.
Say Their Name movement, right, is about that memory. So I think the NAACP today linking the memory of those we've lost to the change and the active role we're taking to make change.
State Representative Kirsten Harris-Talley spoke about work underway at the state level to bring that change. The governor recently signed into law several criminal justice reforms.
Would some of these situations potentially not have happened?
Absolutely. I think the tactics bill is a huge move in the right direction as we think about what it is to have safety in policing.
Organizers say they need broad community support. With the pandemic restrictions easing, they worry people will forget.
This is to keep it in your consciousness, because if you don't remember, then you're doomed to repeat it.
They say there's been some progress, but there's still a long way to go, especially when you see a landscape with so many names. So many calling for justice.
The cause endures, the hope still lives, and the dream shall never die.
Amy Marino, King 5 News.
Yeah, that right there was King 5, as you guys heard. And honestly, it is so important to keep these names alive in our memories, in our mouths, in our community, saying them loudly. I know that when we sit here on Converge and we talk about, you know, the families that have lost loved ones, we always want to remember to say their name. So shout out to the NAACP of Seattle King County for pulling that event together and bringing about the remembrance, because it's so important. Oh, we can never forget.
Nah, this is true. All right. So we're going to, and if you haven't shared yet, and if you have interest about this Chief Best story and who gave the order, now's a good time to tag and share this stream, because we're going to take a break right now. And when we come back, we're talking all about Chief Best, the East Precinct. And don't forget, Clayton Powell, Officer Powell, who was on CBS this morning. Got a whole story there. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city. I did it for the love. I did it for the people. I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish. I ain't even broke a sweat, homie. This practice. Pondering my next move. Staring at my track list. Hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist. Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. My name is Omari Salisbury, and definitely want to thank all you guys who have made one-time donations or supporters or subscribers across the various platforms. Man, your support definitely keeps us on air, literally. We're Seattle's little engine that could, man. So all these donations, man, that's like, you know, putting coal in, in the furnace, keeping us on air. And man, I definitely appreciate you. All right, Trey Holiday, let me put this up here real quick. This was KUOW. Like I said, I was on KUOW this morning, and we had a discussion about this. where it's Chief Carmen Best, and let me scroll down here. Who made the call to leave the East Precinct last summer? Chief Carmen Best, eye-popping interview, right? And you can go to KUOW's website there and check that out. But Trey, we've been saying for months, because it's obvious, really, like, for people who've been following this, and even now, and if you connect the dots, look what Chief Best is saying today. Chief Best is saying today, command staff. A week or two ago, when Chief Diaz overturned the OPA finding, what did he say? Command staff. You see what I'm saying? Something in that command staff ain't right. And, for months, we've been saying, like, yo, I don't know the exact position or even person, but there's people in that command staff that I don't have any proof to put on paper. I want to be clear. But, a lot of stuff we've really been right on so far. But there's people in that command staff that actively worked against Chief Best. And I'm not letting her off the hook either, because I got tear gassed out there, pepper spray. Those still are officers. You know what I'm saying? So ultimately, the buck stops with Chief Best for her police force and the police violence that occurred. So I'm not letting Chief Best off the hook on none of that. But I'm just saying this, that command staff, like we've been saying for months, man, it's these little microaggressions and mini mutinies inside that police force against Chief Best.
Yeah, and I think that it goes back to what we were just talking about earlier in terms of the protections that police give each other and that the department gives to police, that there's no transparency, to be honest, with the community. And so we're left to our own devices. That's why so many stories have kind of popped up about this, so many theories, right? Folks wondering who it was and kind of putting their finger to the pulse to say, this is what I think happened, or this is what I think happened. At the end of the day, they haven't come out to the public to tell us exactly what it was that happened. And here Carmen Best is making sure that people understand there's something going on with the command staff. I mean, this is, again, part of that veil of foggy veil that is put up with the police and the community. So, it leaves room for a lot of people to come up with their own ideas.
I'm glad that Chief Best, because you know what, this whole time now, for months, I've been like, yeah, but, Chief Best is never going to come out and say anything against other officers. She's never going to, this is why it's surprising to me. It's not surprising to me that there's an issue in there in that unit or whatever, because that's what we've been saying. It's surprising because I never thought that you would ever hear Chief Best say anything, near or, or close to that. And what we've seen is, like I said, OPAs get ready to come with whatever they're gonna come out with, of like who gave the order on the East Precinct or whatever. But the thing is, a lot of that command staff is black. It's going to be interesting for all this stuff to come out. But I promise you this, and we saw how that union voted 70-30. You know what I'm saying? Because there was a black union president too. His name was Stuckey. You know what I'm saying? And then Solon came in there and he was like, yo, on his whole change the narrative and everything else. And Solon got elected by 70%. You know what I'm saying? And so Solon got elected by 70%. At one point, you had a black union president and a black woman chief of police, my friend. Yeah. And so it's real interesting here. I've been saying for a long time, Seattle won't move forward until we can tell the whole story. Let's just get the whole story out there, the good, the bad, the ugly, and deal with it. And believe me, I promise you there's more information to come out about what was really going on inside the Seattle police. You got to think, like, look, there's so many different things, right? Because if you talk to like beat officers on the street were like, yo, man, this thing's gonna get ugly downtown. It's gonna get ugly, X, Y, and Z. But like SPD didn't even tell any businesses, give a heads up. Hey, you guys might want to board up your businesses. Where that's why a lot of businesses downtown felt burnt by SPD. Like, man, you guys could have told us. Don't you got an intelligence department? Don't you got this and that? Don't you got whatever? You know what I'm saying? There's so many. If you just look, there's so many different lapses of, of what occurred here. But, also, and that doesn't exonerate Chief Best. It's your organization. You got to be on top of this. If people are doing whatever, you got to fire them. You got to, and so there's, it's a lot of deeper issues here. One of the issues of why they didn't want to bring in Chief Best is because she's been in the force for decades. And so a lot of people who got entrenched, you know what I'm saying, bad habits, what inclination they got to change it, and it's going to be interesting if Chief Diaz stays around here or not. If Chief Diaz don't stay around here, believe me, they're going to get a new chief from the East Coast, somewhere Philly, New York, or something like that, just come in and just fire people.
Yeah. I mean, this is what so many people are saying. Look, we need some real change, clearly. And it really starts with the opportunity to just be transparent with the people. I think that for me is the thorough line here. Folks have been really asking and demanding, like, what happened there in the East Precinct? What happened with Chief Best? A lot of folks at the time, the narrative was really about how the council was cutting Chief Best pay, and it was really focused there. But as Chief Best is coming out and saying there's some issues in command staff, clearly there was other things going on behind the scenes that we had no idea about. And again, this is a level of transparency that's needed, because all of this is really through the city budget, taxpayer dollars. When regular citizens say, look, the police is supposed to be there to work for me, at the end of the day, there's too many people who don't feel that way, because again, all of the narratives are being shielded from the community, and people are not able to understand all the inner workings of these departments and how they work and how they play out. So, at the time, it was all about the pay. Well, Chief Best is not going to, take that, getting her pay cut like that. Black woman chief worked her butt off to get to that position. And then, it was all about the council at the time. But I think it's so important to note what she's saying here, and that there's really something going on at the top levels that most of us are just unaware of.
I'll say this: before Chief Best even quit, back during we got to find the tape where I was like, man, there's something going on in SPD. You know what I'm saying? And either the chief, the way that the early on protests came down, it was like either the chief is derelict of duty or there's some kind of mutiny that's happening within SPD. I mean, we said this way back almost 1 year ago. So well before the whole fight with city council, well before whatever, man, we called it out. I mean, that's the difference of being there on the ground level and being there in the streets and talking to these people and everything else. And so, I mean, the truth, hopefully, never know, the truth hopefully will come out. And man, these commanders need to be, the thing is, what people really need to be looking at, man, we ain't got no time over here to fill out all these requests and everything else. People need to be looking at us like, man, who might have been relieved from their duty early on during the Western Barricade? Who are the people, this whatever, like, man, these, it's wild here, because because believe me, man, there's much more to this story. And like I said, man, we've been saying this now for months, and I think that more things are going to come to the surface. Looks like Chief Best has more of a willingness to talk about what occurred, which is surprising to me. I never thought that she would mention anything on that. And like I said, Chief Best saying command staff, Chief Diaz saying command staff. So, I mean, that's who's next. Let's see.
Yeah, time to dig deeper. Oh, as always. And the funny thing is when we touch these issues, it leaves us with more work, y'all, because there's always stuff to follow up on and stay consistent with it.
I'm saying I'm good on this one. I ain't even got to do nothing else, because it's like, as we called it, it was just wait. It's just a matter of time. It's like, wait and see what happens here. I mean, it's just intuition, being out there and seeing this stuff myself. You know what I'm saying? I don't even need no investigative report. I don't even need to talk to Chief Best. It's great. It'd be great though, Chief Best, if you would like to come here on the Morning Update show again. We'd like to welcome you back here, man. Let's have a further discussion about everything. I mean, we're somebody who's been talking to the chief. The chief was there in the chop. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Western Berger, lots of interviews with Chief Best. We'd like to talk to you and really get an understanding of inner workings and maybe some of these failures in wherever it's at or what happened here around the East Precinct and the Seattle protests. So, Chief Best, we'd love to talk to you.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, even the audience would love to hear so much more about what Chief Best has to say, and maybe expanding on some of the ideas that are mentioned in the article there and some of the things that she was talking about, because clearly so many people are interested in this because it really involves all of us. You know what I mean? When we talk about the inner workings of the police department, it's important for us to understand, and too many of us don't. That's just the truth.
All right, so moving along here, man. We had so much good stuff in today's show too. It looks like my other papers are in the office, but moving along here. And so this was last week. So I'll be honest with the viewing audience, man, is that after CBS this morning had aired this episode here, and they were talking about 260 officers leaving, and there was this officer in there, Clayton Powell. And we did a little bit of background information, and really everything kind of came up on Thursday, and we weren't going to ruin Feel Good Friday talking about this. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Remember, yeah. I was like, man, these stories, I mean, they're out there, they ain't going nowhere. We're not going to ruin Feel Good Friday and whatever. It was probably a good thing, too, because, man, it was a lot of, reading all this stuff. You was like, damn, you know what I'm saying? And so it's good that we let it marinate over the weekend and everything else. But let me put this up here from Publicola, from Paul Kiefer. And voila. Former SPD officer featured in CBS segment has some troublesome history. That's Paul Kiefer over there at Publicola. Doc, I was actually gonna go live. I was like, what? Because this is the consistent gaslighting here of us, people here in Seattle, and also how the national media comes in. They call it the turn and burn, and they come with their narrative or reinforce the narrative and everything else. And just imagine that the people from CBS, they ain't do no Google search, no nothing. They put this guy up as speaking for he's representing the SPD or former officer, but also black guy, because they talked to him about George Floyd. Listen, let me get through these videos first, and then we gonna discuss this more. So I got a snippet here. This is a CBS this morning that originally aired last week, and it features Officer Clayton Powell, and he talks about why he's leaving the SPD.
The Seattle PD is struggling under the public backlash. The police chief there tells CBS News that 260 officers, that's about 20% of the force, have left in the past year and a half. Think about that for a second. Carter Evans spoke to one officer who says the city does not have their backs.
What's the biggest complaint among officers?
Leadership.
Officer Clayton Powell has served 27 years on the streets of Seattle.
30 years is kind of a pinnacle. It was my goal when I started.
You're 3 years short. Yes. Why are you retiring now?
The support that we had in my generation of policing is no longer there.
While Clayton Powell objects to how the city is treating its police force, as an African-American man, he says he understands the outrage over the murder of George Floyd and others.
That could be me, that could be my son, that could be a relative, that could be a friend. There needs to be an understanding of how things got to be the way they are.
Right. This guy says lack of leadership. We're going to get to that. So now we're going to jump in the Wayback Machine and take you back to Cairo 7 in 2012. And look who we found.
Police officer suspended for allegedly roughing up a citizen has been accused of being violent before. We showed you this cell phone video last week of Clayton Powell during this confrontation while he was on duty. Now we have uncovered court documents that show Powell's ex-wife filed a restraining order against him, accusing him of having anger issues. Cairo 7's Deborah Horn is live outside the Pierce County Courthouse, where she's been digging into those just discovered documents. Deborah?
Monique, these documents are part of what appears to be a nasty divorce between Clayton Powell and his ex-wife. In it, she accuses him of having a problem, quote, controlling his own anger. And she asks a judge to protect her and their son. According to the documents we found in the Pierce County Courthouse, this altercation on the streets of Seattle is not the first time Clayton Stephen Powell has been accused of being violent. Back in 2002, his ex-wife accused the veteran Seattle police officer of stalking her and of being unable to deal with his anger. In the court documents, she recounted 2 instances of road rage, including one where Powell was cut off, gave chase, and confronted the driver. All of it in front of their young son, who told his mother he was afraid. Powell's ex-wife is Washington State Patrol Trooper Monica Hunter. We found this video of her as a public information officer in our archives. She also told the judge she complained to Seattle Police Internal Affairs after Powell took their son to work and left him there alone for 4 hours. He was then just 6 or 7 years old. She was granted a restraining order.
Right. And so now this is the guy that Spog puts up the CBS, because you know me, when I saw this guy, man, the first call I made was to SPD, to the chief's office. I'm like, hey man, you guys pitched this guy to CBS News to be talking about this? And they was like, nah, you know what I'm saying? Wasn't us. Actually, I got one more clip here. These are some headlines from the time. And this was all public stuff, man. 2012, 2013. SPD officer avoids firing over serious misconduct. New $500,000 claim filed against Seattle Police Department. Actually, like this guy, if you go back and you really research and everything else, there's some more articles that are coming out. Man, he was supposed to get fired back in 2012. You know what I'm saying? And for all the people, you know, who's like Pete Holmes, don't press no charges against no protesters. Well, he didn't press no charges against no police either. You know, and it's crazy because Clayton Powell's like, yeah, you know, the lack of leadership. The leadership lets you keep your job here for 9 more years. You know what I'm saying? And it's an affront, man. And this is just a constant gaslighting. And what's even worse is, man, I know a lot of black police officers in the Seattle Police Department who've been very committed to community, got great relationships with community and everything else. And it's like, this dude is the dude that's held up kind of representing blackness. Man, tell us about George Floyd and how it's this and that and everything else. That's even a front to these other black officers. Like, word, oh, this guy?
You know, this is something, my mouth is watering, to be honest with y'all, because it's almost too salacious. The fact that we have these examples, this is exactly what we're seeing, y'all, is how they try to rewrite history by putting up somebody like Clayton Powell to be on the spotlight, talking about 20% of Seattle police leaving the job because of lack of leadership. And here you have a litany of charges and issues with this same officer. You cannot rewrite this history. It is stamped in stone, and the video shows it. Here he was in the $500,000 suit that was
for threatening a guy in a jail cell.
Exactly, and a young
black
man. So ultimately, the truth of the matter is this. The truth of the matter is this. You can't run away from your history, Sir Clayton Powell. You can't do it. And you also don't get to represent yourself as if you've been some upstanding officer that has been down for the community, this black man speaking on George Floyd's death, when you have been one of the ones perpetuating the abuse of power in the Seattle Police Department. You don't get to flip around and one interview wipes away your history, man. You got to own up to that, man. Own it and tone it.
I mean, you know, it's a big thing people always want to do is bring up people's past. But hey, there's more. According to Paul Kiefer's reporting from Public Cola, it says here, Officer Clayton Powell, who worked for SPD for 27 years, currently in the process of leaving the department, raised concerns from staff at Washington's Training Academy in 1992 while preparing to join the department. In internal memos, instructors observed that Powell was prone to using force in mock response scenarios. Powell failed the Academy's field test 3 times before SPD finally hired him, and instructors warned SPD that Powell could create a liability for the department.
I mean, come on, man. You got to go all the way back to this guy in the training period. And this is why reforms are needed, you guys. If we don't have a better example right here in Seattle that can be utilized across the nation, I don't know what to tell you. But at the end of the day, this is exactly why an officer that is showcasing that type of force during the training should actually not become an officer. When we talk about protecting and serving the public, here we have people that really they do have anger issues. They do have other issues that they bring into their work. And Clayton Powell is an example of that. His wife was saying, even around their young son, he wasn't showing restraint. That is something that should be looked at, because when you have the ability to give an officer a badge and a gun, and they get to be out there on the streets, ultimately, the ways that he showcased himself in training, it was bound to come out in his career as an officer.
Yeah, and I'm just like, of all the black officers to put on CBS this morning, this national platform, and this is the reason, this is the clapback. And you see, the thing is all the larger media initially covered the story about Clayton Powell, but it's the small media that's actually bringing this back up. You know, like I said, we had this on Thursday. We didn't run it on Friday because it was Feel Good Friday. We Public Cola. I think the same story is out there in the South Seattle Emerald and everything else, because that's what happens when you got a platform as big as CBS this morning. And a lot of people don't question anything in there. It was very disingenuous, because the reporter said that there's $5 million worth of cuts that are still on the table at the time this aired, even way before. You know what I'm saying? That was no longer the case. And this is what I'm saying, is that here in Seattle, we have to tell the whole story. There's quite a few officers. There's a case that we're watching, a few cases that we're watching, where it's involving officers and it's under investigation. Officers have left the force. You got officers that have left the force as well, because they got things spinning with OPA, they got this and that, and they try to make this argument like it's because of defund, I've left the force. And some people are, for sure, but there's also a percentage who's like, hey, we didn't sign up for this. You know what I'm saying? There's also a percentage who might be under investigation, and they're like, man, let me get out of here or retire before, you know what I'm saying, so I can keep my whatever. And it's real disingenuous when people just want to make it, very black and white. And I really feel like, you know what I'm saying, as a member of the black folks here in Seattle, man, I'm offended by this guy, Clayton Powell, man. If they wouldn't have been asking him about this George Floyd, I'd be like, yeah, somebody, whatever. But, this is the dude that, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, man, this was pitched out by SPOG. You see the interview was right there in SPOG headquarters and everything else. And, we're one of the smallest platforms in Seattle. I'll be honest with you. We aspire for a huge audience. We got one of the smallest audiences, whatever. But, we're doing our part in pushing back. But how do you push back against CBS this morning?
Well, I think it's important, just like you said, to be honest and to be open about it. At the end of the day, I'm gonna call it like I see it, y'all, and I see it, but tokenism. I just gotta say it. That's what it is, because when they don't do the research to dig into what that 20% is really about, what they did was they utilized Clayton Powell's narrative and they spread that across the entire 20%. And that right there is where that disingenuous piece comes from, because it does require you guys to pull back the layer. I mean, even if you had some of your junior journalists on this to do some research, you guys would have been able to find those clips from 2012. You guys would have been able to find what the journalist right here at Public Cola, Paul Kiefer, what he found from 1992.
It's
you
just a Google search. CBS showed up, and you know what the thing is CBS interviewed Clayton Powell's ex-wife, Monica Hunter. She's the head of the police training center. And actually we had played that clip not too long ago. And I mean, it's just a Google search. And what'd be interesting as well, you got to see what kind of game these guys played, because Chief Diaz has been on the force for 20 years. And it would be interesting if Chief Diaz would have known that this guy was going to be, you see what I'm saying? Yeah. Because it really just impacts the credibility of the whole segment. Councilmember Tammy Morales was in that segment and everything else. And, it impacts the credibility of it. Anyways, man, we're doing our job here, and we see something. Woo, it's 11:47. Goodness, see something, say something, and that's what we're doing here. So now people know. You see the CBS this morning clip. There's a whole nother side to this Clayton Powell who's sitting out there saying like, "Oh, city didn't show leadership. We don't feel supported." The city kept paying you 9 years, man. Kept you on the job. Pete Holmes didn't charge you with a crime. It seems to me like city leadership served you well. We're going to take a quick break right now. The Morning Update show continues.
Public Health, Seattle, King County, Zero Youth Detention, along with our partners from across the South King County region, are committed to reducing violence and creating the conditions needed for our neighborhoods to be safe and free of crime. Too often, the response to crime and violence has been a piecemeal approach with a program here and a program there. When family units collapse, schools fail to educate, the economy fails to produce jobs, and crime rises, we've looked to law enforcement and punitive measures to save us. Nothing could be more wrong or further from the truth. Law enforcement can't shoulder all the burden or take the rest of us off the hook. We are acknowledging the lived experiences of Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities. We are centering community as the experts who can effectively identify key issues related to systems, policies, and practices that impact children, families, and communities of color across this region. Those most impacted by the issues will help call out and identify the root causes, including structural and systemic factors. 150 residents will partner with King County to develop strategies, solutions, and an action plan that explicitly addresses system changes needed and eliminates barriers to access for Black, Brown, and Indigenous folks. These residents will also identify the criteria used to measure our collective success. Simply put, we need your help as we do the work needed to make King County the safest in this country. It will take specific commitments from all of us, community members, our young people, elders, and leaders from the sectors all across this region. Together, we will get this work done. Please click the link below and sign up for a work group. Or you can recommend a co-facilitator from community for each work group. We look forward to hearing your ideas, concerns, feedback, and solutions as we build a community where all our children can be happy, healthy, hopeful, safe, and thriving.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. Man, that took a lot of time. But, you know, we wanted this Monday kind of highlight some of our other shows that are on air, and we'll continue to do that. And Clapback Culture and Rewind by with Besa. Got a clip here. This is from Clapback Culture. This was Thursday. Mike Davis and Julia Jesse. And Mike Davis was clapping back here in response to all the feedback that Mayor Lightfoot got in Chicago when she said that she was having a media day for just Black and Brown members of the media.
Listen, please understand. Every time somebody wants to do something for Black people specifically, it is always a roadblock. I don't know why this is, but this is what it is. And for those of you watching in Seattle, we literally just seen it here. We had politicians, local politicians promising millions and millions to the Black community. And then somehow it went from Black to BIPOC, and then it went from that to who knows where we are in this process. But I just say that to say it is always so hard to do things specifically for Black people, because you'll have people coming from every which way to come and speak against it. Now, Michael Harriet, who is an amazing Twitter follow, by the way, he's one of my personal favorite journalists. He made a great point responding to this story, and I'm going to bring it to y'all right here. In Donald Trump's 4 years as president, do you know how many times he granted one-on-one interviews to Black journalists in video or in print? Zero. Absolutely zero. The same could be said about numerous politicians. Then you should look at his thread. Mitch McConnell was another name that was mentioned there. When you look at the demographics of newsrooms, you can look at New York City, which is 53% Black and Latino in residence, but then the New York Times is only 9% Black and Latino in their newsrooms. Politicians are able to give interviews to white journalists exclusively throughout this country, and it happens all of the time. The mayor of Chicago stepping out and saying that she only wants to do this interview with a Black or Latino journalist, it's not controversial at all. She's literally just doing what her white counterparts do. Now, they might not jump out and say it because they don't have to say it. because Black journalists are so far and few in between that it's so easy for these white politicians to only deal with white journalists. And a lot of times you won't even notice it. But if she wants to deal with a Black journalist in Chicago at that, she has to go out of her way to do so because their newsroom does not reflect the demographics of their community. So I'm all for her doing this. And for all of these people jumping out to speak against it, I think all of you should check yourself and look at what's actually happening here, because there's nothing at all wrong with her wanting to give these stories to journalists that look like her.
Man, I love what he said there, man. Check yourself. And ultimately, when we get the opportunities to I live my life unapologetically Black. And I just got to say, I love that Mike Davis called this out here. I think it's important that the intentionality, when you have the audience that you do, the platform that you make space to be super intentional about your moves. And this is one that she's doing properly. I just got to say kudos to you out there for making it intentional and saying, this is who you want to speak to, and you're going to make sure that they get the story. I'm telling you, I agree with Mike on this 100%.
My son, he goes to Loyola University, Chicago. So I'm out in Chicago quite a few times a year. Nobody really likes Mayor Lightfoot. That's the whole other issue or whatever. But I understand where it's coming from. But the bigger issue here, playing this clip, is this what you're missing when you're not watching Clapback Culture? And this was a really good episode, man. And actually, it's up across all of our platforms. Mike Davis, Julia Jesse, and that's on air every Thursday at 7 p.m. Then also we caught up with Besa from the Rewind with Besa, and we got a clip here because National Mental Health Awareness. And Besa talked about how she's actually just taking time for herself.
So I definitely want, if you are having anxieties, to really think about them and think about what's causing that anxiety for you. You might need to meditate. You might need to go work out. You might need to do some Reiki. You might just need to sit in silence or walk around and clean up your apartment. I don't know. Do a 2-step. But figure out whatever you need to do to work through those anxieties and work past that depression, especially with us still having a little over a week left in Mental Health Awareness Month. I really wanted to use this month to grow myself, be a better person, and see myself as a person that everyone else sees. It's really, really hard or really weird that I say that out loud, but that's the reality. I think sometimes people are able to see so much of your own light because you're just like, I don't really know if that's really me. Is that really what's going on? It's like, yes, this is you. This is why you're great. So I've been just really taking this time to be completely sober, have not drank since April 30th. Not eating meat. I haven't ate meat. Well, I didn't even eat meat that day, but since the day that I saw that worm, and I've just been really working on drinking water, getting my sleep, being nicer to myself. I think sometimes our anxieties and depression are also just caused by just being mean to ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, I think remembering that we're all doing the best that we can is very, very important. And just giving yourself that pat on the back all the time, yes, having a pat on the back from someone else is great, but patting your damn self on the back and actually meaning it and really feeling it, like, oh my God, I got a promotion. And you're like, okay, that's great. But it's like, do you really think that's great? Do you really feel that it's great? You know what I mean? So figure out a way to feel good in the moment, however that works for you. I can only say what works for me.
I love that. It's important that, folks like Besa and others really utilize, again, their platform to speak to these issues. I'll say, too, not just patting yourself on the back, positive affirmations and smiling. They go a long way.
Right. Good stuff. We're up against the hour right now. So we're going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to say bye right now. And we're going to leave you with a clip, man. Pamela Yasutake, Northwest Tap Connection. They up there tapping it up, man. Saw this video. We always got to leave it in the best way. Before we get out of here and we jump into this Northwest Tap Connection video, any last words?
Man, always find ways to see yourself as a part of the solution. Clearly, you guys can hear how much your voice is needed out there. And when we collectivize our voices, we make change. See yourself as part of the solution.
All right. Good stuff. Yeah. We're just back at it. I'd be so ready to move back overseas and get back on the beach. But until then, I guess we're on all this stuff. Hey, we're getting out of here. Want to remind everybody to go forward in your purpose, go forward in your humanity. And until tomorrow at 11 a.m., peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun.